Our next guest is well known to baseball friends all around the world. He has visited Williamsport numerous times over the years, covering the Little League Baseball World Series and the MLB Little League Classic at Journey Bank Ballpark at Historic Bowman Field. He co-hosts a podcast with his son Jeff called Is This a Great Game or What? Tonight makes his record 6th hot stove appearance. Joining Gabe Sinacropi, please welcome ESPN Hall of Fame baseball analyst Tim Kurkjian.
Listen to that, Tim. They love you. They love you, baby. It's your 6th appearance here at the Hot Stove. You're a big part of this event each year, and we can't thank you enough for coming out again tonight.
My pleasure. I love it here. The first time I covered the Little League World Series, Carl Ravitch, the voice of Little League Baseball, told me this will be the best assignment that you've ever had, and he was right. But let's be clear, one reason they send me here is because of scale and context, because I'm the same size as most of the players.
I feel your pain, brother. I feel your pain. Let's start with the Hall of Fame. The results of the Hall of Fame vote by the writers announced just on Tuesday. 2 center fielders make the cut, Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones. You have been a voter, I think, for 35 years?
35 years, yes.
Okay. Now, many writers release their ballot to the public early. You do not. Tell everybody why.
Well, I think there should still be some drama on who's getting into the Hall of Fame on January the 20th. If we all publish our ballots, we already know. So that great moment, who made it, is no longer a great moment. So I allow my ballot to be released, but after the fact, because I don't want to take away from the baseball writers' night where we elect certain players.
Okay, let's check out who you voted for. It's up on the screen. Carlos Beltran, Andrew Jones, and Chase Utley. Now, before we talk about them, you can name up to 10 players on your ballot. You usually do. This year, you only picked 3. Why?
Well, it's just not as strong a ballot as I've seen. There have been years where I voted for the maximum 10, and if I had 17 votes, I would have voted for 17 different Hall of Famers. That's how big a Hall guy that I am. But I'm sorry, I looked at this ballot this year, and it killed me to leave Dustin Pedroia off, and Felix Hernandez, and Jimmy Rollins. But these are the 3 that I ended up with. Carlos Beltran is one of the great switch hitters of all time, 400 homers, 300 steals. And he's one of the greatest postseason players of all time, a 1.021 OPS in the postseason. It was when we watched him in 2004, it was like watching Mickey Mantle in his prime. That's how breathtaking he was. Andrew Jones, after Willie Mays, and yes, I am old enough to have seen Willie Mays in his prime. Andrew Jones is the best defensive center fielder I've ever seen, and he hit 435 home runs. And Chase Utley's numbers are borderline Hall of Fame numbers, but I vote for him every year because nobody has the intangibles that Chase Utley has. He was the best player on those great Philly teams. Nobody played the game harder than him. Nobody played the game more correctly than him. That's why I vote him in, and he got a really big jump this year, up to 59%. I promise you he will be a Hall of Famer someday. Maybe not next year, but the year after, and it will be deserved.
In addition to those 2 gentlemen, Jeff Kent will also be inducted this summer. He was voted in by the Contemporary Era Committee. Tell us about
Right. Well, Jeff Kent hit more home runs than any second baseman in history. He has the second highest slugging percentage of any second baseman ever, and the most runs batted in. He was not a great defensive second baseman, but he's better than people think. And when you win an MVP at that position, you run up those kind of numbers. I voted for him every year on the writer's ballot. He never made it on the writer's ballot. He got in on a special committee ballot. He is one tough guy.
Spring training is just about a month away now. What are some of the top stories in MLB right now?
Well, it's just ridiculous, sorry, how good the Dodgers are. I mean, they won the World Series in 2024 without a starting rotation. They won the World Series in 2025 without a bullpen, and now they've upgraded the rotation and their bullpen, and they added Kyle Tucker to play right field every day. It guarantees nothing in baseball, one of the beauties of the game, but we have to see how good the Dodgers are going to be this year, because if their rotation stays healthy, which it didn't do last year, they're going to win 110 games. That's how good the Dodgers are. That's just one thing. There's so many other things to look at. We'll just look quickly at the Phillies, and thank goodness for the Phillies that they re-signed Kyle Schwarber, because no matter what you hear about him as a player and as a guy, you can multiply it by 10. Of all the leaders that we have in the big leagues right now, he's the number one guy. He runs that clubhouse, and he shows up ready to tear your throat out every day. So I'm watching the Phillies because they got Kyle Schwarber back. I couldn't imagine them moving on without him.
And the World Series champion for 2026 is?
Well, again, I'm sorry. I have to go with the Dodgers. The Dodgers, the last 6 years, have won 3 championships and have a winning percentage of .630 during that 6-year period. The last major league team to win in a 6-year period 3 championships and have a winning percentage that high was the Yankees, 1953 to 58. We are watching a dynasty. The problem is their payroll is going to be over $400 million. There are going to be 2 teams out there with a payroll under $100 million. No one else, only maybe 2 other teams are going to go over $300 million. This is a problem. I don't want to harp on this, but we have a real problem within the game for competitive balance, and I'm sorry, we are headed for a work stoppage in 2027 until we get this figured out.
Well, that answered my next question, but the follow-up to it, would there be a work stoppage? You think there would be. The follow-up is, what does a lockout in the off-season mean? Because it expires December 1st, I think.
It expires in December, and then it suspends all signings, all trades. It's like the game isn't even operating. I covered the '81 strike. It was horrendous. That was 45 years ago, and we're still arguing about the same thing. And when we went on strike in '94 and we lost the World Series, it took Cal Ripken and then it took a McGuire-Sosa home run battle 3 years later to bring the game back. I'm sorry, nobody loves the game more than I do, but I'm not sure it's going to come back very quickly if they walk out in 2027 or are locked out. There is so much money to be made in this game. I cannot believe we're going to have a work stoppage. But as of the moment, I'm guessing for sure we're going to have one.
Let's go to a lighter topic.
Thank you.
Let's talk about your podcast. Is this a great game or what? If you're a baseball fan and a fan of TK over here, I highly recommend you tuning in to this. You and your son, Jeff, who's a radio guy in Philly, country station. Great interviews, a peek into the Kurkjian family life, just a ton of fun interviews, stories, and conversations. But I do have to warn everyone, it's slightly disconcerting, Tim, because you and Jeff sound exactly alike.
Yeah, we look exact. It's a terrible voice, I'm sorry. And the first year we did it, a bunch of people would always chime in like, I can't tell who's talking. You sound exactly like your son, and he sounds exact. I gave him no height and a terrible voice. That's about it.
Well, you gave him a lot of baseball knowledge, too, as he was growing up. Sometimes the stories veer off from the baseball landscape. We didn't talk about this, but I'm going to hit you with it. Like the one you recently told on a recent podcast over the last couple of weeks about your high school social studies class. Do you remember that one?
I can't believe you're going to make me tell that story.
I'm going to make you tell that story right here.
All right. So my grandson was just born a month ago, and I went to his circumcision, okay? And it brought up the memory when I was a sophomore in high school, and I was in social studies class, and we were doing a study on social mores, how things are done in other countries, and it's me and the 2 most beautiful girls in the class, in our sophomore class, and we're in this study group, and we go to the library, and these 2 girls are so beautiful. For our old people, it was like Jill St. John and Anne Margaret going out with Ernie Douglas from My Three Sons.
How about that for a throwback, all right? Those
That's
three.
how bad it was. So we're in the library, and the word circumcision comes up, and we have to study that. Like, how do they do a circumcision in India or whatever? And I look at the girls and I say, what's a circumcision? I honestly, sophomore in high school, had no idea what it was. And they kept saying, no, you know what it is. You're a big kidder. We're not listening to you. I said, no, I don't know what it is. And one of them said, I said, well, can you tell me? And she goes, no, I can't tell you. I said, is that because you don't know or you just don't want to tell me? She goes, I can't tell you. So I went home afterwards. I opened up the World Book, and there was a picture of a circumcision in there. And I went, oh, my God, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. That kind of summed up my entire high school career. When it came to boys and girls, a little bit behind.
Well, you interview a lot of people. Who's the most intimidating person you've ever interviewed?
Well, Ted Williams is on the top of that list. I've never been more scared in my life talking to anybody because Ted Williams is the greatest hitter that most of us have ever seen. And fortunately, in the 3 or 4 times I interviewed him, I didn't have any problems, but he is rough and he is gruff and he was brilliant beyond words. If you ask the wrong question, he might take a swing at you. But that's who Ted Williams was. And they used to have a thing at the Hall of Fame that the day after the induction, the writers got to sit down at a table where there's a Hall of Famer at every table. So Ted Williams' table is empty, and then like 5 people get the courage to go talk to Ted Williams. And they sit down, and after 45 seconds, nobody has said a word. And Ted Williams looks at him and goes, scared to death, aren't you? And that's how intimidating Ted Williams was. But boy, did I love talking to him because you always learned something.
We've got a ton of audience questions for Tim. We'll take a couple of them here. The first one, is there any hope for the Pirates?
And yes, there's hope. They've added 2 left-handed hitters, Brandon Lau and Ryan O'Hearn. They're going to add some punch to the lineup, which is definitely necessary. They're not a playoff team. I don't see them making the playoffs, but they have to get better because the only way that they're going to keep Paul Skeens on this team is to show massive improvement, be a contender, maybe make the playoffs. Otherwise, he's either going to walk or they're going to have to trade him. And look, I'm telling you, I've been covering baseball for 45 years. I have never seen a pitcher come in and be as dominant as he has been in his first 2 years. From the day he got to the big leagues to right now, 2 years, I think he's been the best pitcher in the game the entire time. I don't know another pitcher that I can say that about. So the Pirates have to add a lot of punch to that lineup to give him some support.
You've written a few books. A question here of how long did it take you to complete a book?
Well, the last 2 books I wrote, I started writing the day I got home from the World Series, and I stopped writing the day I went to the spring training because I couldn't allow an off-season book project to get in the way that the writing that I was doing. So it took me like 3.5 months to do it. It's the most satisfying thing I've ever done is write a book. My second book was called Is This a Great Game or What? And it's just a Valentine for baseball fans filled with just strange statistics and funny stories, hopefully. So my 10-year-old nephew, Brett, takes a look at it, and he has to compare and contrast 2 pieces of literature at age 10. So, of course, he picks Uncle Tim's book, Is This a Great Game or What? And he compares and contrasts it to The Odyssey. To which my cousin said, look, I know there are homers in both of them. Pretty good line by my cousin, but she said, maybe we should find something that are more comparable than The Odyssey was built at the time of the Trojan horse and Uncle Tim's funny book for baseball fans.
All your books are great. I've read them all. I highly recommend them to you. I've said it before, everything I've ever known about baseball history I learned from collecting baseball cards. Nobody tells better stories than Tim Kurkjian about baseball. Always ready with a story or anecdote about any player that you could bring up. So we'll put him on the spot again with our baseball card roulette. And you know what? I listen to your podcast and I hear this baseball cards from the basement bathroom. And I figure you stole that from what we do at Hot Stove. In wrestling parlance, that's called gimmick infringement.
You're not the only one that has ever looked at a baseball card and said, tell a story about it. It's called 3 cards in the bathroom instead of 3 coins in the fountain. I go downstairs, I pick out 3 cards, and I try to tell a story for each person.
We have 3 piles. We have Hall of Famers, we have today's superstars, and random. Pick one pile.
Okay, well, the Hall of Famers are probably too easy, so
Okay.
we'll start with random.
All right, pick one.
I don't have my glasses on. Is that
That's Mickey Rivers.
Oh my gosh, Mickey Rivers, one of my favorite people ever. I'm covering the Rangers. I'm 25 years old. I'm working for the Dallas Morning News. I'm in my first full spring training as a beat writer. I've been there for 2 weeks. And Mickey Rivers, who always had a little trouble at the track and with bettors and everything else, he comes up to me and he goes, Tim, can I borrow $2,000? I said, Mickey, I make $13,000 a year. I don't have $2,000 to my name. And Buddy Bell pulls me over, and Buddy Bell tells me, whatever you do, don't give Mickey any money, because he'll never pay you back. But Mickey's one of the all-time funniest people I've ever met. And as he once said when he playing a game in Milwaukee, it was really cold there. He said, I felt like the lost Mohican out there, the lost Mohican out there. And I heard the story recently that during a high school baseball game, he ran off the field, jumped over the center, like climbed the center field fence and ran away because somebody he owed money to came to the game and was after him. He jumped the center field fence. How can that happen?
True story. I almost went to a racetrack with Mickey Rivers, but I did not, and I'm glad I didn't.
Right.
We'll wrap it up with a fast 5, Tim. 5 quick questions, 5 quick answers for the incredible Tim Kurkjian. Number 1, if baseball had walk-up music for writers, what would yours be?
Short People by Randy Newman. What else?
I did not set him up for that, but that's mine too. Number 2, nicest player you ever covered.
I know it's not Ricky Pitalico, I can tell you that. It's a joke, Ricky. It was a joke. Well, there are so many of them, but Tony Gwynn was one of the all-timers. You just sit with Tony Gwynn, you ask him a question, and it no longer becomes an interview. It becomes a conversation between Tim and Tony Gwynn. I could sit and talk to him for hours about anything, baseball-related, off the field, whatever. And by the way, 1994, he hit .394. He told me he used one bat the entire season without breaking it. He only kept it out, against a really tough left-hander like Jeff Facero. And he used one bat the whole year. Pete Incaviglia, former Philly, broke 12 dozen bats in one season, 144. Tony used one bat the whole year, and he never broke it. And then the next spring, during batting practice on a back field, he broke his bat against Rob Piccolo, one of the coaches. And Tony told me, when I broke that bat, I almost started to cry. And Rob Piccolo told me, I almost started to cry also.
Number 3, if you could cover one game in baseball history, which would it be?
I think it would have to be the 1960 World Series game between the Pirates and the Yankees. The Pirates won 10-9 on the biggest home run in Major League history, Bill Mazeroski, and there were 0 strikeouts in that game. 10-9 final, Game 7 of the World Series, no strikeouts.
Number 4, if you could erase one baseball rule, which one goes?
Look, the ghost runner at second, we used to use that when I was 7, okay? Pitcher's hand, ghost runner, right field's closed. It's the big leagues, everyone. I know most people love the idea because the game gets over a little bit sooner, but now that we have a pitch clock that makes the games go 30 minutes less, can we please just play until somebody wins? I hate the ghost runner. I'm sorry.
And number 5, best baseball movie ever.
Well, Field of Dreams is the greatest baseball movie ever. It always will be. And I'm hopelessly biased here. Look, it wasn't about a cornfield, and it wasn't about Joe Jackson. It was about a father and a son. And nobody loved his dad more than I did. And my father taught me everything that I need to know about baseball and life. So that movie is about a father and a son. I took my father to see it, and we both cried uncontrollably. That's just the way it is. Best baseball movie ever, Field of Dreams.
Well, Tim, you've done it again. You've entertained the heck out of us tonight. That's why he's a Hall of Famer, the best in the biz. ESPN's Tim Kurkjian.